Hello, and this is Delia again. We are on Chapter 7, and we are on Part 8 of the Vampire Diaries, The Awakening. And we were about right here, because we had already talked about the dark. Now we're talking about the windows. Well, no, we already talked about the windows. Okay, so this one's where we're at. Stefan unlocked one of the double doors, and they stepped into a small hallway with a flight of stairs directly in front of them. The banister, like the doors, was natural like light oak, so polished that it seemed to glow. They went up the stairs to a second-story landing that was poorly lit. To Elena's surprise, Stefan led her into one of the bedrooms and opened what looked like a closet door. Through it she could see a very steep, very narrow stairway. What a strange place, she thought, this hidden stairway, buried deep in the heart of the house, where no sound from outside could penetrate. She reached the top of the stairs and stepped out into a large room that made up the whole third story of the house. It was almost as dimly lit as the stairway, but Elena could see the stained wood floor and the exposed beams in the slanting ceiling. There were tall windows on all sides and many trunks scattered among a few pieces of massive furniture. She realized he was watching her. "Is there a bathroom where He nodded toward a door, and she took off the blazer, held it toward him without looking at him, and went inside. Chapter 8. Elena had gone into the bathroom dazed and numbly grateful. She came out angry. She wasn't quite sure how the transformation had taken place, but sometime while she was washing the scratches on her face and arms, annoyed at the lack of a mirror and at the fact she'd left her purse in Tyler's convertible, she started feeling again. And what she felt was anger. Damon Stefan Salvatore, so cold and controlled, even while saving her life. Damn him for his politeness and for his gallantry, and for the walls around him that seemed thicker and higher than ever. She pulled the remaining bobby pins out of her hair and used them to fasten the front of her dress together. Then she ran through her loosened hair quickly with an engraved bone comb she found by the sink. She came out of the bathroom with her chin held high and her eyes narrowed. He hadn't put his coat back on. He was standing by the window in his white sweater with the bowed head, tense and waiting. Without lifting his head, he gestured to a length of dark velvet laid over the back of a chair. "You might want to put that on over your dress." It was a full-length cloak, very rich and soft, with a hood. Elena pulled the heavy material around her shoulders, but she was not mollified by the gift. She noticed that Stefan hadn't come any closer to her, or even looked at her while speaking. Deliberately she invaded his territorial space, pulling the cloak more tightly about her, and feeling, even at that moment, a sensual appreciation of the way the folds fell about her, trailing behind her on the floor. She walked up to him and made an examination of the heavy mahogany dresser by the window. On it lay a wicked-looking dagger with an ivory hilt and a beautiful agate cup mounted in silver. There were also a golden sphere with some sort of dial set into it and several loose gold coins. She picked up one of the coins, partly because it was interesting and partly because she knew it would upset him to see her handling his things. "What's this?" It was a moment before he answered. Then he said, "A gold florin, a Florentine coin." "And what's this?" "A German pendant watch, late 15th century, he said distractedly. He added, "Elena." She reached for a small iron coffer with a hinged lid. "What about this? Does it open?" "No." He had the reflexes of a cat. His hand slapped over the coffer, holding the lid down. "That's private," he said, the strain obvious in his voice. She noticed that his hand made contact only with the curving iron lid and not with her flesh. She lifted her fingers and he drew back at once. Suddenly her anger was too great to hold in any longer. "Careful," she said savagely. "Don't touch me or you might get a disease." He turned away toward the window. And yet, even as she moved away herself, walking back to the center of the room, she could sense his watching her reflection. And she knew suddenly what she must look like to him, pale hair spilling over the blackness of the cape, one white hand holding the velvet closed at her throat, a ravaged princess pacing in her tower. She tilted her head far back to look at the trap door in the ceiling and heard a soft, distinct intake of breath. When she turned, his gaze was fixed on her exposed throat. The look in her eyes confused her, but the next moment his face hardened, closing her out. "I think," he said, "that I better get you home." Okay, and that'll be part 1 of chapter 8.